Welcome back to Marzano's Becoming a Reflective Teacher Element Study. And I know last week I required all 3 videos to be viewed in order to better prepare you for the unit plan that we have coming up starting next week. So this week, since we still have to work through our math strategy sheets as well as our social skills and self-regulation / executive functioning activities, I am going to actually focus today's 2 elements on the math strategy sheet in the sense that the 2 elements we're looking at apply to the practice of learned skills and developing fluency in those skills. Because did you know that you can be fluent in things other than reading? So I have changed the order of the elements that as they were planned originally, just because our timing changed, as you know, due to some other circumstances. So these 2 strategies for this week, which is week 6, are 19 and 20. So elements 19 and 20 are for week 6, and this first element video is for element 19. So here we go. Element 19 actually says, what do I typically do to help students practice skills, strategies, and processes? So what do I typically do to help students practice skills, strategies, and processes? And then the specific statement related is when the content involves a skill, strategy, or process, the teacher engages students in practice activities that help them develop fluency. So again, fluency has a much broader meaning than just being a fluent reader, as we have worked on over the past few weeks. So I am going to quickly go over the teacher evidence and student evidence, but what is most important for me to help you understand today is that there's sort of a sequence that you need to go through that looks like scaffolding and some other things that I know you've learned in prior courses where you talk about, modeling, then guided practice, then independent work. But I want to give you another framework for that that's very similar, but it's within the Marzano Reflective Teacher textbook. So teacher evidence in this category would be that the teacher engages students in massed or distributed practice activities that are appropriate to their current skill levels. That's important. They need to be appropriate to their skill levels because it's just like reading where you don't want to put a frustration level material in front of a student when they are only at an independent level, a first grade, and you're giving them, a third grade frustration level item. So I do believe in math that you have to make sure that you're either accommodating them at a level, not known to man before, if you're going to give them more difficult materials, or you actually continue to teach them from the ground up. And I strongly believe that. But I also am a believer that we've taught math the wrong way for years and years and years because we haven't taught it from a problem-solving approach or from a constructivist approach. So you can take that with a grain of salt, but I dare you to read about it and discover your own stance on the teaching of math and where we've broken that over time. So anyway, you have to give them items that are appropriate to their skill levels, and you want them to be able to do within these activities. You want them to be able to execute a skill, a strategy, or process, such as the following. So you might give them guided practice if the students cannot perform the skill, strategy, or process independently. You must give them guided practice rather than assigning them homework or a worksheet to take home if you have no evidence yet that the students are able to perform that skill independently. It's just not appropriate. And that's one of the biggest flaws that we make as teachers. We give students things to do independently, and we have not ensured yet that through guided practice and modeling that we've provided them with what they need to perform that independently. So the next step is that you can give them independent practice if the students can perform that skill, strategy, or process independently. So it all ties into what is your purpose for homework? What is your purpose? If you want people to practice, you want them to practice correctly. Why would you want them to practice something in an incorrect manner? So you cannot give them a task to do independently if you cannot ensure already that they have been able to do that with support that was necessary for them to master that skill, and then just practice independently to reinforce that and generalize it. Student evidence of a teacher who's actually instructing with this sort of flow or framework in mind would be that the students perform those skills, strategies, and processes with increasing confidence. So you're not going to see students who are attempting to avoid the task at hand or that are telling you, no, I can't do it, or that are getting poor scores on those assignments over and over again. I always say, look to the teacher first. It was my fault if, 60% of the class couldn't do the task. It's my problem. So please keep that in mind. If your students are not performing satisfactorily, then you've either not selected the appropriate level of materials to present, you've not provided enough supports, or you pushed them onto independent practice before they were ready, or your management skills were not strong enough for them to receive the instruction you were giving that may have been at an appropriate level, but you couldn't manage the classroom to a degree that they could actually learn the content from you. So students not only are more confident about their performance of the skill, they're actually more competent. So they are improving their mastery scores, accuracy scores, but they're also feeling more confident with their work. And I may be alone in this, but statistics show me I'm not. Surveying of individuals about their math experiences when they were younger and their learning in math do not show that they had the most positive experiences. So I would say that the increasing confidence part is an excellent indicator of how well a student has mastered math, because I can't imagine a student who was less confident in the end being more competent in their math skills. Those go hand in hand. So you will know either qualitatively by surveying the confidence levels of students verbally or just by observation, and you can also look at their scores to know if they're mastering the material in the first place, and if they're able to do it on their own independently without the support of a parent at home, because that's pretty much the only way that I survive my math and that sometimes my kids do. So again, I am a strong proponent of reinventing math instruction and going back to Marilyn Burns style and some of those great math approaches that are professed by the National Council for Teachers of Mathematics. I was taught that way in college. That was how I was taught to teach math, and it changed my life. So if you've not reviewed some of those approaches, now's your chance. That structured framework that I mentioned earlier that I think we need to go through is just another way of naming those steps toward removing all the structures and supports and leading to independent practice. So this comes directly out of the book, and some of the tips that they give are that you should closely monitor each and every part of the learning of strategy, skills, and processes. And I know I'm focusing this on math, but it could be aligned to absolutely any content area. But I am saying that in math, you need to closely monitor the students as they're learning a task. You want them to do it right the first time and learn it based on your model and your demonstration. So you want to make sure that they aren't off track before they've even made it past the modeling phase where they've watched you perform the task and where they're beginning to work through guided practice. They need frequent structured practice, and I do mean structured, where they are experiencing success multiple times on each of the discrete parts of a mathematics task before they're asked to put it all together and move on. So we try to teach too broad and not deep enough, too broadly and not deeply enough in our math curriculum. And I know that the Common Core standards, we're attempting to emphasize that, but we're not working with the Common Core standards as of this date. So it's up to you. If you want them to learn it and be able to work on it independently, then provide them with the time they need, with close monitoring and the frequent structured practice opportunities in order to achieve mastery and to become more confident. They also speak of varied practice, so they need to have a chance to monitor their progress with strategy, skills, and processes because they need to be able to identify their own errors and be self-aware of what isn't working correctly in a problem, or they're never going to be able to tell if they've done something correctly or incorrectly. Case in point, your teacher right here in her stats class, and I did a whole practice packet to take back to class, and I was super confident that I had done this task correctly, but I had not had it modeled for me. Actually, we'd had it modeled once, and then it was not guided. So we were asked to attempt this task and bring it back the following week, but we'd only had a model. So I went about on my merry way thinking I was understanding it based on one opportunity to observe a model, and I came back and I was so completely off track that it was embarrassing. So it's real, and I'm sure it happens to you in some of your classes also. So varied practice, but I needed to know how to self-monitor that and tell if I was on the right track or on the wrong track, because when you spend 2 hours on two math problems like you do in statistics, you need to know far sooner than at the end of the 2 hours if you've completed the first step incorrectly, like choosing the wrong test, which I did. So none of that really means anything to you if you're not a statistician, but go on and do your doctorate, and I think you'll probably run into a similar scenario. So after that varied practice and the self-monitoring that should be provided, you need to provide fluency practice, and that fluency practice is what lines up with your independent practice. So fluency is those are practice opportunities for students to improve their accuracy and efficiency at completing their reading, or their math, because it's just like reading, where you can have a reader who can decode and who can read perhaps with expression, but they read 10 words per minute, and that's not efficient even though it's accurate. And I think math, it's a very strong parallel between the two, that I might be able to do one of those stats problems now following a model step by step, but it takes me 3 hours when it takes other individuals, 15 minutes, and we come to the same accurate conclusion, but I'm certainly not efficient at it. So again, this element was element 19. What do I typically do to help students practice skills, strategies, and processes? So a goal that you might develop would be to determine where you are actually seeing students go through those phases or those steps within the framework of moving from model to guide to independent, and make sure that in your instruction and that of the teacher that you're with, in all of your instruction, you're not moving through those steps too quickly. Thank you.